everybody, and thank you for joining us for this cybersecurity update from the National Motor Freight Traffic Association. My name is Kaylee Nix. Very excited to bring you another update on the state of cybersecurity from NMFTA. And joining me today is Ben Gardner. He is our Senior Cybersecurity Research Engineer there. Ben, thank you for joining us once again today. It's great to have you.
Kaylee, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to touch a little bit on asset and vehicle cybersecurity. And this is a really important piece when you think about keeping every single piece of that puzzle safe and secure, right? Can you talk us through a little bit about what that particularly means for the industry?
These assets that we're always talking about, this is a term I picked up from working in standards bodies and recommended practices, where they like to call them rolling assets. They're the things that move. They carry the freight from point to point, and they make the money. They're the lifeblood of the industry and really our whole continent.
Absolutely right. If the freight is not rolling and the trucks are not rolling, then things are not making money, as people like to say in this space. So with all of the assets on the road, obviously hundreds of thousands of trucks moving all across the globe, right? Why is it so important that we do this research specifically on asset security? And what has NMFTA's role been in doing that research so far?
Yeah, I think it's really important because obviously the assets are the critical piece, as we've identified, and these trucks, they weren't developed to be connected to the internet. They weren't developed with cybersecurity in mind, really. The engineers designed them to have high uptime, high reliability. I'm sure we've all heard of them called heavy duty trucks, right? And the duty is the duty cycle. It's how often they have to operate. That's what they're designed to do. The problem is that with the advent of regulations that have now required internet connectivity, we're taking these systems that were never really designed to be connected to the internet, and we are putting them on the internet. They contain control loops and diagnostic systems that will mostly do what they're told when you send them a message. And that's just not a good combination with the internet connectivity. So, for the last 8 years, the NMFTA has actually been doing its own research as well as funding some others and collaborating. We've had the pleasure of collaborating with CISA and the FBI, and in a couple of cases, CISA has actually published advisories due to some of our research, and that was into power line network problems. I'm happy to say that there is no public instances of any truck attacks or truck ransomware, and we really hope that it stays that way due to us being ahead of the curve here.
I think that's super, super important, especially as we talk about the advent of these smarter, both passenger and consumer vehicles and also our transportation vehicles, right? Whether that's light, medium, or heavy duty trucks, we are talking about getting smarter assets. Therefore, we have to get a little bit smarter in how we're protecting them. Curious about your thoughts on ELDs and ELD logging. You've mentioned that there's been no direct hacks from an asset side, but what about the things that have been put into those assets, specifically like electronic logging devices? Have we seen any issues with those pop up in these last few years?
I mean, so far the issues have just been with availability, right? There's been multiple ELD providers that have gone out of business. And from like a business operations standpoint, losing your service provider that you probably have tightly integrated digital systems with was not great for your uptime. It certainly caused probably rolling back to paper backups for those companies. But the ELDs are not all created equal, right? I mean, there's some multiple hundred ELD self-certified providers. At the very least, we've seen that FMCSA has started rejecting some of them, which is a great move, to really cull the herd, but I think that still leaves multiple hundreds. So when it comes to what ELD should deploy, we really think that the fleet should actually be evaluating cybersecurity of their provider as part of that procurement process. We have a telematic security requirements matrix that's available on our website with a Terra questionnaire that's ready to provide to multiple ELD providers, and then you can decide which one has the right service and cybersecurity for you.
As always, making sure that you thoroughly do that research before you invest in any type of product. You mentioned you guys have 8 years of research and publications so far that you have put together. What are some of those examples on what's available? You mentioned that resource specifically for ELDs, but as far as other assets for cybersecurity, what are you guys looking at?
Yeah, so all of this is available on our website, nmfta.org/cybersecurity, and we have a research section. It's really run the gamut from all the different kinds of systems that our fleets tend to operate. I think many people are aware that fleets kind of pioneered digitization when they brought in electronic data interchange in the 80s and put that on AS400 systems. It probably won't surprise any of your viewers to know that pretty much everyone is still running those AS400 systems. So one of the good contributions that we made was actually AS400 security and recommendations and presentations on that you can find on the website. Similar vein to the previous that we just talked about for ELDs, we actually have contract template language recommendations so that when you actually do procurement or service agreements with your other parties, you can make sure that you have cybersecurity upfront in that contract template language that's available there as well.
When we think about things that are a high threat priority or a high priority threat for us to address in specifically the asset space, what are some of those things that you guys are looking at combating as being kind of your number one threat priority?
Yeah, I think number one is really security of telematics devices because that's just the initial foothold into this potential attack onto trucks. So we're hoping that by putting the answers where closer to the wallets, we're going to get better systems that are being deployed out there, and that's what the TSRM is really all about. Second to that is some kind of segmentation and separation of truck networks from these telematics devices. And we're doing that work in standards bodies and in our own working group where we've actually collected cybersecurity requirements for gateway devices as well.
So with this, of course, keeping things safe all depends on people's willingness to participate, right? And the ability of folks to get in and make maybe a little bit of investment on the front side of things that you see pay dividends in your safety on the back side of things. How has participation been so far in some of these programs? And what is NMFTA really doing to make sure that that participation continues?
Yeah, fleet participation has been the key to all of this. The fleet participation has helped us steer into what is the most important research topics that they need to know about, what is the best way to receive the deliverables like tearaway questionnaires and template formats and things like that have been very useful. None of this work would really be possible if we weren't getting the carriers to the table early. And the way that we do this is we run working groups that are accessible and available to any fleet members. That's the whole point of it. And at our conferences, we always have multiple workshops and good Q&A discussions. And a lot of the topics that I mentioned earlier, those actually came from those work group sessions during our conferences where the fleets come and participate. That's our superpower is fleet participation.
So to get folks in and participating if they want to get together with that, not just fleets themselves, right? Carrier shippers, 3PLs, really anyone in the industry has the ability and the need to participate in this. Where can they go to find that participation? And you mentioned the conference. How can people get involved in that?
Absolutely. nmfta.org cybersecurity page is where you can get started with participation. There's lots of contact details there. And when you go to that site, there's an events page. And on the events page, you'll find information for our conference, which is in Houston, Texas, October 22nd and 23rd.
All right, Ben, thank you so much again for joining us for this cybersecurity update. We appreciate the input as always.